What is up? Derek with 13 Series Engineering here, coming to you with another dry dock server-side single-page app episode. And today we are going to be implementing turbo streams. And we're just going to be following along with the Symfony docs on how to do all this. I'm going to put those in the description. And just like with turbo frames, we kind of learned about things and then we just use them all the time now. We don't really talk about it a whole lot. We're kind of going to be doing the same thing here. And the example I'm going to show is we're going to be creating a part and then we're going to show how it updates for other users in like a live table view. But of course, we're going to be implementing that for delete, for editing a part, and for all those things. So basically, in order to get us to this point, I did have to write a lot of code and do a bunch of stuff beforehand. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes and kind of go over some of that. Basically, right here, this is just a form built with Symfony Form Builder. Pretty simple, but it's a form that we went ahead and made reusable for the edit form, which we'll get to eventually. So that's really important to try and make this stuff reusable when you can. So it's basically just a reusable form. This add schematic, that's going to be for an image. That's not required or implemented yet. We're going to be skipping that for now, and we'll go over that when we hit on image compression and like a bucket upload using S3 or something else. Haven't really got to the architecture of that part yet, but this will be like an image upload eventually. And then let's see. So, okay, this form gets created. Pretty basic form submit. There's a turbo frame that shows you like a success or failure message, and then you can reset the form and do it again. This parts table, pretty simplistic implementation right now. There's a lot of things missing. These filters and sorting and all of this stuff isn't hooked up right now, as well as clicking on the row doesn't do anything. But what is working is the edit modal. So we just have a modal that you can edit and update all the parts with and everything. It's that same form, it just takes data. And I think that's something we haven't gone over in Symfony. It should probably be named part type instead of create part type, but here you can see we have an array of data that gets passed in from the controller. So parts controller, yeah, we just pass in this part object, and then that allows us to, we could set this up here, options part equals part or new part or something like that. Or you can just use a magic method to, getters and setters. And if this is null, it's just blank. So too easy, you don't need to null check it if it's there or not. Nothing's really required. It's just an easy thing to add to a form, to have it pre-filled out with data. And probably we want to add something like the name is disabled, if that's there. So you can do that in a pretty cool dynamic way. You could just be like we'll do name classes equals, too many S's there. Definitely needs that. Ooh, check this out. We could have this be an array. So it has that, and we want to implode this with a space separator. There we go. And not null. Well, I guess we should do is set, huh? Might as well, we're in PHP. It's the like most used function. If that is set, then oh, it's not happy. Why? Okay. Because it's a return function value. Okay, that's fine. If that is not null, then we are gonna add disabled or nothing. Next index of this. Cool. So we could do that. Let's see if it works. And no, it doesn't. Oh, yeah. Okay. This should return null because if or it should return not null. Wow, that's an interesting error to get out of this. Gets undefined. Not sure why. It's fine here. That's weird. I think because this is getting built in the service container before before we actually are calling it. It's already pre-built. But let's see if our disabled. Oh, call it again. It's unhappy. Very strange. Might have a race condition in JavaScript somehow. But I was going to go over how exactly. Yeah, see, it has disabled added to it. We probably need that as an actual, like, attribute. I think that disabled class is just for buttons. And that's really, really ugly, by the way. Okay, we're just going to leave the disabled stuff alone for now. We will get to that eventually. It's just a thought I had while I was going over it. Seems like more of a headache than it's worth right now, though. Just trying to go over turbo streams. But I always notice stuff like that it's like, ooh, that might be nice to have. And then just go off on a tangent. So trying to avoid some of those today. I'm not sure why I get an issue sometimes when I'm making a request to this. Need to figure that out. It's well, let me show you what we're doing. We're doing a little sneaky thing in JavaScript that I actually kind of want to fix that I think might be a problem. Okay, so view parts in our view controller. We just call part service get parts. That just gets all the parts. There's some permissions we probably need to add there for creating and editing stuff in both the back end and in the twig, because single page app you have to do that. You have to make sure your endpoint matches the permissions of what's disabled or hidden on the front end. And really the thing here is these edit and delete actions. So those just open up models. Delete isn't implemented yet, but edit opens a modal in Bootstrap. And here's the thing with that. So with Bootstrap, when you have Bootstrap and Stimulus, you can't use the JavaScript functions at the same time because you have like a target and data like JavaScript action on it already. So it's just going to do one of them. And in this case, it's just going to open the modal. We can't add a stimulus action to this. Well, we can, but it won't work. The stimulus action won't work. So it just opens the modal. That's all we got. And then we got this turbo frame in here that loads that edit form. But there's no source. It's like, how does this work? Well, dynamically, we have a stimulus controller that gets loaded and it wraps this table. It's actually in a different twig file, but it wraps it. And we take this turbo frame ID and we change its source to this URL, which loads in the turbo frame. Pretty easy. But the way we're doing that is we're adding this event listener to the click to add this in. And we're doing that through an event. So what we might want to do real quick before we actually get into the whole turbo stream thing is this is obviously working. I just don't like event listeners. It's just a quick way to do this. The best thing to do, maybe we'll go over that later, but the best thing to do is to open Bootstrap dynamically, put all this in the stimulus controller. Don't use an event listener because we're going to have a lot of rows here. So we're just adding a bunch of event listeners to the DOM. Like it'll be hundreds and hundreds of event listeners. So that's a bad design architecturally. So really what we want to do is just open this modal using Bootstrap by passing in this edit part modal ID. And we can just do that really quick. And then we're going to make this a stimulus controller. We can still have this data part ID on the button. That's fine. We don't have to change that. But we can just do stimulus action, and that is in parts table and open edit. And now we can keep all this functionality, and actually we want to do this below it. So we're going to load the turbo frame first from the event, and I think that event listener might be why we're getting that race condition where sometimes it doesn't load. So I'm definitely going to have to look this up because I don't know it off the top of my head. Let's just go to Bootstrap 5 modals and via JavaScript, and first thing we're going to have to import Bootstrap. New Bootstrap my modal, blah blah blah. No options. I think it's just the empty array. Blah 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 blah. That's fine. I think we can just leave it out. We don't even need that, right? Or is it gonna throw a fit? No, seems like it doesn't care. But it's not gonna like we don't have Bootstrap, so import maybe because it's loaded globally, I actually don't need to do this. I honestly don't know. But let's find out. In my experience, you do need to add Bootstrap to this import. And then it's just edit modal dot show, I think, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I don't really like that that's, well, I guess it's fine. Alright, let's see what happens. I got Webpack running, so we should be good. And not happy. Oh, typo. There we go. Bootstrap is not defined. Yep, we gotta add it. That's okay. Happens. It's not really gonna add. I think you can just okay, cool. Let's see if that's the right one. There we go. So now it's showing, doing all the right stuff, and we have this out of an event listener, probably eliminating that race condition. We'll see. But that's more of a correct way to do that. In this, we probably want to change. This is just what I've done in the past, but we're loading, and it's not a whole lot. It is a min.js file, 135 kilobytes. But probably we want to just load the modal part if we can. I wonder if their docs talk about that, like optimization. You can just load with ES6 if you can just load only the part that you want. I'm not sure. I've actually never done that, but JavaScript. Import all, imports, blah, 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 blah. I think you might need to get all of it. That's what they're showing here as an example. Instead of like, I'm just thinking of like, in Angular material or whatever, you just only load the parts that you want. You don't load all of it. But anyways, that's fine for now. So the point is, we got all this stuff working. You create a part, it shows up here. When we go to edit a part, which honestly I haven't tested that, but that's in parts controller. Just this route just displays the form, but on form submit, we have success and all this stuff, and we use our part service to update part, which takes the existing part. Oh, that's bad. Why was that there? Oh, oops. I guess I didn't finish this. We probably just need to find that part in the database and like refresh it and then update it with the new information, because the part, oh, we're already doing it, so that should return the right instance. Yep. We could just pass the ID and do it all in the service, but because we're getting it anyways for the form dealio. Yeah, we can split this out. PHP Storm is always awesome at telling you when you have duplicate code. We'll just do void for now. We might want to return a boolean later, but a little redundant here. But that's okay. We might need to do a few other things at some point. captain. And this is going to be optional. Oh. Cool. If captain is set. Yep. It should be good. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. Little recursion there. That's not gonna that's dangerous. Mm-hmm. No, not required. Oh, it's just saying that can be null. Sure. Not optional. Oh, because I need to pass it a default. Well, I'm not going to have a default. I guess the default value could just be null, but this is essentially the same thing. So it's nullable versus default equals null. Which one's better? Kind of the same thing here. Doesn't really matter. Except you always have to pass in null for captain. So that gets kind of annoying. I guess defaulting it to null would be the best thing, and then I don't have to pass it. It's an interesting debate, thought, and experiment. Which one is really better, default or nullable? We're going to go with default. Okay, so that update should be good. We're going to test it here in just a minute. But basically, when we update things or create a part, it should show up in a parts table. So first thing we're going to do is implement TurboStream here. And when you create an entity, that's, I guess, one thing I didn't cover was actually creating this entity and the migration using Symfony make entity. So we have, all of our stuff here, all of our fields, our getters and setters. And that's really, this is the main difference and one of the things I like in Doctrine versus Eloquent. Eloquent's way better than Doctrine in Laravel. Let me just say that. Eloquent for Laravel is 100 times better than Doctrine. There's way more stuff. But one of the cool things about Doctrine that they do better is the entity versus model class. Entities I think are way better. They have all this stuff that you can like customize getters and setters. It just kind of, I don't know, makes more sense to me, I guess, than the field, the way fields are done in models in Laravel, because they're kind of done through migrations. Also, you create all these and then you make a migration that kind of puts your database up to date with your entity folder or folders, or, I've set up Doctrine to connect to multiple different databases and data sources, and there's a lot of really crazy stuff you can do with it if you know what you're doing. Super cool. And you can obviously do the same thing with Eloquent. I just think that some of that stuff where you need really custom implementations, Doctrine can have some advantages there. And when you need to make a lot of migrations, Doctrine's great for that. In fact, Eloquent is so bad at making migrations and it's so tedious that there's a tool you can use for Laravel that I really like called Blueprint. This is a pretty cool composer dependency you can get. Basically, it works like Symfony console make entity, where you can use you use a draft.yaml file to basically like you make this YAML file that kind of has models, and it just has the fields, all the database config stuff you want for each column, and it will create controllers, seeders, factories, all the stuff that you need for. I think it gives you a whole list of all the, but it's like 4 different classes it makes, instead of doing it through, including the migration. Instead of just doing it the old school way and typing it out. This is like 100 times better, and it'll update stuff for you. Um, like there's no reason to not use this. It's just way better. It's basically it's the equivalent of a command line tool that is just running a YAML file. So it's not like this isn't supposed to be a map out of your whole entire schema. Like that's what your migrations and models and stuff are for. This is for like you write a YAML file and you know uh, it just runs it to set up your migrations and all that stuff for you. So um, and controllers and all this stuff. Laravel's strength is as an API for sure, being used like an API. That's why they use this passport. That's why the routing is the way it is. That's why the service container is the way it is. That's why everything is the way it is in Laravel. Is it's designed to be like a backend API that has some JavaScript single page app. You know, it was never really designed to be used with Blade like the way that it is. I think maybe originally it was, but the idea wasn't that you're going to have a server-side rendered app with or web page with blades. That was never the intention, and so this is just something that leverages that. Anyways, that's enough about ORMs and entity managers. But you know, if you guys do want a tutorial on it's super easy. The only code you need to write is these repositories. You need to add functions for stuff you need to do. We've already gone over this before with creating our captain, our user entity, and all that stuff. Once you create that or round out that repository, nothing should call that repository except for the corresponding service for that part or for that entity. I mean, that's really the best. Like you could call it someplace else, but it's just better here because you're putting it in the service container, and because these are going to be in the constructor, everything in the service container is a singleton. So this is what we want. This only gets initialized once. There's no reason to initialize it more than once and put it in memory more than once. But that being said, because it is a singleton, you need to be careful with Doctrine's entity manager, and you need to clear its cache every so often, like if you're doing mass inserts. That's a little out of the scope of this video as well. But anyways, I think finally, oh, why I did want to talk about that is that it will make, let's see, broadcasts. When you're building the entity in Doctrine, it will ask if you want TurboStream broadcasts. And here it just auto-generated TurboStream code for us. And this is what we are going to be doing. So it's got these three things. Append, it's going to just add this markup to the current TurboStream at the end of it. Update is going to find an entity with that ID and update it, and remove just deletes the markup. This is what a WebSocket's doing basically. Is that if you went and reloaded the web page, you would get the same data. This is just putting your version of the markup up to date with what someone that refreshes the page would get. And that's all we're doing is eliminating a page refresh. We've been talking the whole time here about doing, this is all server-side rendered markup and all that stuff. However, turbo streams are not. So that's the one caveat is that we do have template tags. They build basically a stimulus controller behind this the screen, the scenes, and then the markups rendered by the client. So you do want to try and keep these light. But today, what we're really going to focus on is append. And then we can worry about update, at another time, maybe like a little quick part 2 about update and delete, but those are pretty self-explanatory. And these update or append and update and remove, I'm trying to think where else we might use these for parts. I think it's just going to be in the view parts table, so it's okay to have the table markup in there, like table row and table data, because that's essentially what's going to happen. When we append a part, we're essentially going to add all this markup into here. Now I think this is going to need to be part ID, but it thinks it made it correctly, so we can just go with that, I guess. And the rows should really have this ID. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's going to throw a fit over this, but let's see if we can get it to work. Kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but that's okay. So append, it's just going to take this template and insert it into where it's supposed to go. Which we're going to set up our other stream tag, and we're going to need to give it an ID of parts, which this probably needs like parts table or something. Something a little more unique, like view parts table. Sure. I do sometimes have my IDs be snake case versus camel case. I know that's not the best, but you probably should go back through and fix some of those. Okay, so this should basically, like, see here, we got camel case. This will basically, when we set this up, and this, you know, it just gets auto-generated from building out the entity in Doctrine. In our parts table, like below here, or wrapping this whole thing, because we do want to broadcast deletes. So basically, the table body is going to need to be wrapped in this turbo stream. What was that? And we should probably put like TS, because for turbo frame we put TF. So TS parts table. I like that convention. TS parts table. TS parts table. And we're also going to need a like topic for this, and we're going to have to publish to it. Kind of just going on my own on this. Should really be going off the Symfony docs. We'll get to that in just a second. Cool. All right. Okay, we already have turbo. Let's see, coming live with turbo streams. Now, the DevOps and stuff we're going to do for this is just for local. For production, it's quite a bit different depending on how you deploy everything, because you typically, if it's not containerized, you're going to need another server. If it's on a Docker container, you're good. But a lot of, like for a database, you're probably not going to want your Postgres instance in a Docker container. Like with all these, you're probably not going to have a production setup like that unless you're using ECS or EBS, which that there's a lot of research you can do. Elastic Beanstalk is not the right tool for Symfony, for Laravel, for PHP. EBS is not the way to go. And people have been using that in the past. You'll see why that's not. If you do your research, you'll see why that's a bad thing to do. But if you're going uncontainerized, you're going to have to set up like a separate server or a separate instance called a hub. And that's what we're going to go through now. So if you look in our Docker Compose file, we don't have any hub listed here. We have our mailer, which we went over before, our mail catcher, and we have our database, but we don't have a hub. And that's what we need to get turbo streams to work, is we need that WebSocket hub, right? Let's see, we kind of went over all this. Okay, setting up the hub. Bring down Webpack, and we're going to add this Mercury bundle, which you can use Mercury to just do regular JavaScript WebSocket if you want. Basically, it's just a WebSocket hub. Do you want to include Docker configuration? Yes, of course we do. Cool. Then we go to our controllers config. Yes. Enable this. And yes, set it to lazy. We don't need WebSocket taking up overhead on page load. Perfect. So this is going to create stimulus controllers like for us on runtime. Okay, let's look at our turbo config. So, but the thing is with WebSocket, it's okay if there's a delay, like a second or two. You know, we don't need, no one would ever notice the pop in for that. They would, you know, as long as you get it within a reasonable amount of time. There could even be a 10-second delay for this application. It's just not gonna, matter if it's not instantaneous. Turbo YAML. We need to add this to GitHub. Cool. Okay. So, blah, blah, blah. Hubs, default, and here's all our config for everything. And now, which I don't really want to show you guys my env file just because I have some of the mailer stuff in there, or I might have taken it out. I think we're good. Yeah, there's no send grid keys in there. Okay. So these for local, it's not going to matter, but for production, we do want to like change all of this stuff to be, you know, there's a lot of configuration involved. And like I said, we are going to be doing DevOps for this eventually with Platform SH. And when we do, then blah, 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 be sure to yeah, we should be good without needing to actually update this stuff, but we'll see. We might need to change it to localhost here in a minute. We are using Symfony Docker. We have our, so this should go to just 127.80 automatically. We shouldn't need to worry about it. Yeah. Platform SH has great docs on how to do all this and actually get it set up and working in production, but there is some nuances to it. So yeah, for now this is fine. The whole DevOps and getting it to work is a totally different story, but for right now we should be good. Cool. Okay. Next, we need to actually publish our we need to publish the new object to our turbo stream, and then we need this guy right here, which is going to, you know, actually listen for that broadcast and pull in that markup. That looks good. The chat, by the way, that they're referring to here, I believe that is the, they don't show it, but that should be the entity that's actually being created. Yeah, chat, messages, stream, blah, blah, blah. So it's like chat.message is the dealio. Div books, listening on our turbo stream, all that stuff. Okay. And we do also need to, when we go for like update and delete, we need to add this ID to these table rows. Part ID is part dot ID in this instance. And so that way we can update and delete everything. And our controller where we create a part, when this is successful, we probably want to, let's see. Yeah, we're going to want to get the actual entity back. So when we go to create a part, just going to rework this a little bit. We need the part to get returned each time. Or we can just return let's update that, blah, blah, blah. Create part, update part. Cool. Okay, there we go. We're getting our part back. I think I probably need to refactor some stuff in what we created for the TurboStream data, because it is going to be I need to add the hub too. It's not going to just be able to magically guess about the class fields. So we're probably gonna have to code that out too. Just 1 second. We'll get this going. Hub interface, yes, import it. Not happy. Undefined class update. That's pretty weird. Okay, topic, part, and here we're gonna render broadcast slash part.stream.html. Cool. Okay. Yep. Guess I could have just kept those, because I think I'll get undefined warnings. Or either way, I'll get one. We'll see what happens. Because it's getting the whole entire object. Cool. Okay. So we should have everything to send messages to our hub, provided that it is connected correctly. Just go over the docs one more time. TurboStream listens. Oh, right. We need to update our stream to listen to the part topic. There we go. Okay. Basically, that's it. So let's see if we got any errors. We need to... Oh, this is going to give me issues because I should have shut down Docker first. Shoot. Okay, I guess it's going to be happy with it. Yeah, we got to download our Mercury hub and all that stuff. Our Docker image, and we should be good to go. We might have a few bugs we're going to have to just go through real quick. I think we should be set up, and this should just work. Cool. All right. Of course, a lot of this just isn't responsive. Unfortunately, it's not this whole design isn't like it's not going to collapse correctly. There's some stuff we have to do to make this a good mobile design, and we will get to some of that eventually in dealing with a few things. There are a few UI elements that don't add any content that we're going to probably hide on mobile, like these little node lines and some other things, and we're just going to have to stack this, and it'll look good once it's done and stacked. But for right now, I'm pretty sure it'll break if I make it super small. So we're just going to avoid that. Let's see. Did Docker up run correctly? Are we good? Yep. We got our Mercury WebSocket running, and localhost port 80. So yeah, let's see if this is gonna actually connect to it by broadcasting something. We'll just delete this later anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Oh, there we go. Got our first bug. Right, and I'm try catching everything. Not great to debug with Symfony. Let's open up our profiler. Take a look at everything. Security requests, Mercury. We got nothing in Mercury, so I'm going to guess we had a connection issue because there's nothing in there. Obviously this got created, but that is not the point. The point is that we got an unhandled exception, or a handled exception, and we don't really know what happened. Let's just see if this shows up again. Yes, we got an error. Okay. Didn't show up in our stream. Of course, if we refreshed it, there it is. I'm going to guess it's not connecting though. So let's get rid of all of this. And maybe this needs to be... No, I think it's right. It has to be an update. We'll just get rid of our try-catch stuff and see what error we get. Cool. Variable part does not exist. Okay. Interesting. So we are hooked up right. We just have an issue in our twig. It appears saying that part does not exist, but I am passing it. Part. That's definitely interesting. Let's go back to our docs. What am I missing? Alright, there's definitely a few things I forgot. I just took a little break to read through this and debug it so it wasn't wasting everyone's time. Using hub interface is basically like kind of a more custom implementation for like chat messages and stuff, which is great. But I was basically trying to do the two different implementations of this at the same time. So when you create an entity and it asks you if you want to broadcast this on a turbo stream and you say yes, you don't need to use hub. You don't actually even need to do anything other than implement the TurboStream templates, which is crazy. It's super easy. I've never actually done that with the entities. I've always done this custom implementation of rendering a view, which we could go through that too, but essentially we're doing the same thing just without this component. So this template could be anywhere if you're using the hub. Just with the TurboStream tags, template tags, and then whatever's going to get rendered and the appropriate target and whatever, all that stuff. So let's say we're going to use Apache Kafka for this, but let's say we wanted to use a TurboStream instead. We would essentially put that here, render out this alert in our alerts panel that we talked about in the previous video. And that's how that would work. And that would be super easy. Actually, for us to go and do that would just be like an hour or two of work, mostly markup and CSS. But actually appending this with a TurboStream using hub interface, super easy. But we're going to do it the hard way and use Apache Kafka. And we're going to get some cool added functionality with that, essentially achieving the same thing, just being able to reread messages and iterate over things. The implementation we're doing is for TurboStreams is this broadcast implementation, which I have set up, and then I proceeded to go and use the hub, which was a mistake. So let me show you where we're at. I thought I wasn't connecting, and I did have to configure some env stuff for the TurboStream. This is all, I'm just going to close out all this because it's a mess. But when Doctrine asks you if you want to broadcast the entity, what it does, and you say yes, it adds this broadcast annotation, and it uses this broadcast like trait essentially. And that's all that it adds, and that's all the magic. Everything else happens behind the scenes with Symfony, which is awesome. So now, if we look at our controller, we don't do any TurboStream stuff. The entity just gets updated in the database, and on entity save, that's where we have all the hub things do their magic. And you'll see when I show you what the parts table looks like. I definitely did a lot of tests to make sure this was working. In this broadcast directory, that's where it looks. It looks for the entity, and then entity dot something is the you have access to all the entity fields. It's basically just in Twig. This is like get cost. It's obviously can't access a private field. You have access to the ID here, all this stuff. Probably need to update some of these things. ID. Probably going to break it now, but this is working. So now it's really easy to go ahead and just do our. There's just so little custom things that we have to do, and we're just going to update the row. We probably want to add this to a component parts. Just be like parts row, parts tr, parts row, sure. And then here we can just be like include components parts row.html.twig. It's going to bring all that in. Yep, and that part ID should just work because it's going to take the matching element with that with this ID, part underscore ID, and replace it with that, which we should be good with that. If we look at our parts table, and I could honestly just add parts row to this too because it's the same thing and save some markup. I should probably do that. But for right now, just to look at it, finds that part ID and just replaces it. And we could probably just pass it with part as entity. That would be fine. Or with entity as part. I don't know. We'll deal with refactoring that later. But as you can see in this stream, we have the update, remove. These blocks, you don't need to worry about them. Essentially, they are what's called automatically depending on the CRUD operation that happened with your entity manager. So in our instance, create is getting called, and I might have just broken it, but then we'll test this in a minute. But you can see we're listening to all entity updates for the namespace for the part entity. So we could do that for captain or anything else. And that's it. So it's just those two pieces. It's like the outlet, which you could have as many of those as you wanted, you know, and then the essentially broadcasting the publish. This is the pub, and like this is the sub. So you don't need to worry about hub or any of that custom implementation. This is just like too easy for this to work. And I did just get it to work, but let's try and get it to work again. I don't have, it's funny, I don't have anything in Mercury messages into the Symfony profiler, even though I've been sending some. But as you can see, there's a lot of just different test ones. So we'll do a real one now. Create new part. What's a good one? Like, we'll do a weapon. Laser blaster, sure. From home from the Milky Way. High direct energy weapon. Cool. Part power, 99. Durability, there's no moving parts. So, well, we'll give it like a really high durability, I guess. Part cost, a lot. 7,500. I think that's quite a bit. Oh, I forgot I did that. 500. Okay. Cool. New part created. And there we go. It popped in. That was a little slow. I think because we're lazy loading, or because I'm recording. My database stuff is slow. Let's try another one. We'll do another weapon just to make sure we're working. We'll just do turbo stream tests, blah blah whatever, and see if it pops in. And that one happened a lot quicker. But as you can see, that just popped in. Okay, so boom, WebSocket turbo streams are working. We had to do barely anything. And that custom hub implementation, I guess we could go over, but it's not really worth it. Like, you're doing the same thing. You just have whatever template with the turbo stream tags. And make sure your outlet, this is the other mistake I just made. Your outlet needs to be your turbo stream listen Symfony controller. Stuff's getting appended inside here. This should not be a turbo stream tag as well. That was my issue with why stuff was not printing out. That was stupid. It's not a turbo stream. It's just any HTML tag, not a turbo stream tag. So this is correct. Shouldn't have turbo stream anywhere in there. The only place you should have it is where stuff's getting created. But to use the hub, you just put this anywhere, and just like a turbo frame, it's just going to take this markup, but it should be in its own, twig file. It takes that markup, it appends it to where things are listening, and this is the topic, which we're using an entity as the topic, but that's the only other thing that you would be adding is this hub interface, which we could do that for alerts, too easy, but we are going to skip over it. And we are going to do Apache Kafka next time. We'll go through setting up a broker cluster, and producing messages and consuming messages in Kafka.js on our client side. This is going to be a very custom code implementation. We're not really getting any framework help at all from Symfony on this. It's going to be like our own kind of thing, and one of the first like custom implementations we've probably done. We are going to need to finish our delete stuff. Well, let's see if update works here. I'm going to go to a different one. I'm going to update this weapon to have 450 durability. Probably going to get an error. Yep, didn't save right. That's a bad form submit. Okay. Let's look at that real quick. On save, edit part was not found because we don't have where's that parts controller? Yeah, it's not a route. We need this. We need to create the form with that part ID. No biggie. Just fix the URL and see if we can get this to broadcast. Lots of issues all over the place today, but that's okay. Part updated. And okay, so you can see we got some issues with our markup here, but it did trigger the update. Let's go and fix that real quick, and we should be good. Blah, blah, blah. This is using that target part ID, so it replaced that markup with this markup, but I'm not sure why it's not happy. Table row, table data, that all seems fine. Target part underscore ID. I think that's our issue. Okay, is that it just only, yeah, it put it in nested table row. Cool, so that's pretty easy to fix. We just give it an option with table row. Here's going to be false. Here is going to be true. And then here we just go if with table row end if. Now we won't get that issue. Gotta love Twig. Super easy to fix stuff like this and make things more dynamic. We have a lot of opportunities in our project to do that as well, to kind of refactor and componentize a lot of things. You don't always want to get too crazy with that because you end up making the code actually really hard to work on. I should probably do something on this being updated, but for right now, that's okay. It's fine how it is. Works. Let's make this 300. Okay, not happy. Oh, why? Oh, I bet there's we created a twig issue. When we did that, I'm sure. With table row. Yes. I'm not sure why it's so unhappy about that. Why? Should just be appending all of those things. Okay. Get rid of our try catch, see if we can get a Symfony debug on what's going on. Again, that's probably something we should add to our list, is better error handling using like Sentry or something, so you don't have to keep messing with these. Try catches and uncommenting them. It's pretty annoying. Just doing this just to get an error. End of statement block expected. Oh, I'm such an idiot. With, because I already wrote with, I didn't write it again. We want to include this. Wow. Okay. It's just those little things. You want to get that exception someplace. I should just honestly like print the message out. But, oh well. Okay. Now we should get, this should finally work. Without any issues. We'll make this 375. And there we go. Boom, updated. Cool. Okay. So I think everything's working. Probably got some code I need to delete or clean up. But I am going to commit this so it's in the repo if you guys want to pull it down. We basically have everything like that we need. Delete needs to happen. Edit's good. We just need delete functionality. And like a modal that's like, are you sure you want to delete this? Blah, blah, blah. We need responsiveness. We need quite a few things. We need better error handling. But that's all okay. I don't need to commit those. Because basically we're good to go and we can just move into Kafka next. But that's going to be a big project. We're probably going to have to break that into a couple different videos. One, just setting up Kafka. Two, producing messages and making sure that actually works. And then three, actually consuming them in the front end. Probably be a multi-part video series to get that done. But it might be a minute before I do those. So yeah, that's all we got time for. Turbo streams are working. Stuff's happening. Very, very cool. It looked like we had a CSS issue, but starting to come together. When we deploy this on the internet, it'll be pretty sweet. It'll be a pretty fluid experience. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll catch you next time.